let's talk about the Halo the graphic novel. We talked a little bit about that when we first said hello today. But how did that experience of taking, going into this project where the Halo universe exists, lots of fans already are really into it. They don't want it to be messed up. They have their own babies involved. They really have it on their minds. Can you talk a little bit about picking that up and treading carefully while also having your own creative vision?
Well, yeah, that was an interesting project because I knew the woman who was in charge of it, Maria Cabardo, when I worked at DC Comics, and she said she was working on this, and I was like, oh, I love Halo. So she said I could submit some ideas, and I submitted 3 original pitches, which I'm really sad I didn't get to write any of them because they were really cool. One of them was going to be hysterical if I actually got to write it. But they liked my pitches well enough. They thought I got the world well enough where they asked me to instead write the main story in the graphic novel, which is the 44-page, the first one with Simon Beasley doing the art. And that was interesting because that one was, they handed me the story. They said, the Spec Ops officer from the Covenant goes to this ship, fights the Flood, gets his mandible broken, and this is happening in Halo during Master Chief doing Blah. So Master Chief is not in the story. So I was like, okay. So it was very kind of, this is the story you're telling, but they gave me a lot of leeway within that. And I was a huge Halo fan to begin with. And I read a bunch of the novels beforehand, played through all the games several times, so I felt very informed going in. I actually avoided the online community to some extent just because I didn't want to get anything corrupted by theories as opposed to facts. Because there's a lot unsaid in the Halo universe, and a lot of people come out with their theories, and I didn't want to accidentally absorb any of those. So it was actually a really fun process, though. I actually wrote it really fast. It only took me like a week. And the people at Bungie were super cool because there were times where, like, for example, there was a meeting where they effectively, where the Spec Ops officer interacts with the character who would become the Legate in Halo 2, and who's currently the Supreme Commander in the course of the story. And the guy at Bungie was like, well, I don't know if we want to use him, because, he's using all this other stuff. And I'm like, well, if we don't use him, we're just going to have some faceless commander tell this guy to do this stuff, as opposed to a character who players will have some emotional resonance with and go, hey, we know that guy. Yeah. He's going to do this, this, and this. And so they're like, oh, well, that's a good point. So they're very cool to work with. So it wasn't actually that hard overall. It was, I have to say, despite the rabidity of Halo fans to some extent, it seems to have gone over relatively well, and I never got any flack for it overall. So here's hoping that'll continue. But I mean, it was a really fun experience. I mean, that was because I got to go to Comic-Con that year and kind of pitch it. It was actually really funny because the first time I ever did a comic book signing, I'm sitting just at the table with all the other writers on it, and all the other writers and artists, and I'm just like, why am I at this table? There are people here who've been working comics for like 30 years, and I am at this table. This is weird, but it was a really good experience.
So you've had that experience of working on that side of an existing kind of world. As you've brought writers in over the last couple of years to kind of write out the corners of Fallen Earth and even take on the main stories, and how has that kind of lesson of picking up of Halo kind of helped you bring along your writers and kind of work with them in a friendly way like Bungie worked with you?
Well, the main thing I've learned is never to quash anybody's creativity. It's sort of like, it's not the saying, some people say there's no such thing as a bad idea. Well, there are bad ideas, but you have to, usually in even a bad idea, there's something worth saving. So it really is about not telling people, you're wrong, it's a horrible idea. It's like, okay, that's not exactly what we want. This part of it is what we want. Go with that and come back to me with what you got. So it's really all about trying to get people to look within what they already, because everybody kind of comes to the game with what they want it to be. Some people come to the game and want it to be Fallout. And some people come to the game and want it to be Mad Max. So you've got to just look at what they're bringing to that. Say, okay, these are the parts of what you're bringing that we can use. The other parts you're not bringing, we don't want to do that because it's just not right for the game. But everybody, if they come to work on a project like this, if you tell them, hey, do you want to work on it? When people come in and interview for this job, there's some part of the game they get, and you really just have to nurture that part. And also, a lot of times we get writers who are good at different things. So, like one of my guys, Wes, who's my second in command, he does great dialogue. He does fantastic dialogue. It's just fun to read. And like Lori, who's one of our editors, she's really good at politics and intricate storylines. And So everybody's kind of got their own thing as to what they do, and it's good that way, just so everybody creates a different feel, brings different elements to it, so everybody's sort of creating their own thing. But really, I mean, that's the heart of it, is seeing what people bring to the table that you can use and focusing on that, as opposed to trying to get them to focus on what you want at the table. Or what because if I try to get everyone to write like me in the game, when I write NPCs for Fallen Earth, they all talk like characters from Firefly. Every time. And if everybody in the game talked like that, it would be really annoying. So it's all about, just trying to see what other people have and what they're really bringing that works in the game, as opposed to what I'm bringing and what I think, what I do that works in the game.
All right. Well, let's go back, and the last question on the non-Fallen Earth stuff, I think, is it's about Dawning Star. At Gen Con 2007, you got to GM a charity game of Dawning Star. I read a little bit about that, and it benefited Trainers Hospitals for Children. How much fun was that to kind of, you're the GM at this charity event at a big con, and just tell me about that.
That was awesome. That was a bizarre time, though, just because people paid like a few $100s to be in on the game, and we had like 10 people playing, one of which was J.D. Wicker, who is one of the designers of D20 Future. So that was pretty cool, to have the guy who designed the game you're running playing in your game. A little intimidating, especially considering the big party we had, too. We had, 10 people. There are people who had paid money to watch the game. So, and all the money went to a good cause, so I understand, paying money isn't exactly accurate. But we raised, like, almost $3,000, I think. I mean, and the fun part of actually running it was the players could throw money in a bowl to, buy their way out of trouble. And then the people who were watching could put money in the bowl to buy them into trouble. So, yeah, it was a lot of fun. I mean, it was one of the most interesting game running experiences I've probably ever had, because it was the only time I've ever done it where real money was involved, in a sense. So I wanted people to really feel like they got their money's worth. And everybody seemed to. I mean, if I had been able to go the next year, we probably would have done it again. But just scheduling-wise, I wasn't able to make it the next year. But yeah, it was a fabulous experience. Hopefully we'll be able to do that again at some point. Unfortunately, Fallen Earth makes it a little difficult. Can't really do that kind of thing with Fallen Earth necessarily. But yeah, I'd love to do that kind of thing again, because we seemed to get a good amount of money raised, and all had a really good time doing it.
Awesome. Speaking of conventions, I met you at a convention a couple years ago, the Game Developers Conference in 2007, and what's it kind of like? Because Raleigh's got a lot of game companies. We've got Funcom and Epic and all these other game companies. Let me quickly over here: Vicious Cycle, Red Storm, Destineer, all these places, and so you can have a conference every time you go out to lunch. You might run into them.
Oh, we do. We actually, I have one of my oldest friends works at Red Storm. And every time I run into him, like, we'll go over to Danny's Barbecue right around the corner. Great barbecue place. And we'll run into them, and there'll be a bunch of Red Storm guys, and it's like, get out of our territory! You guys are in Icarus turf, and then we have a snap fight, or a dance off, whatever's appropriate. So to our numbers at the situation. So I mean, we do actually run into them. It's funny because them we actually run into and sort of make fun of. Then you see the Epic guys. We'll go to like a I forget, it's a burrito place, Chipotle, and we'll go in there and we'll pull in our cars and right in my friend's Land Rover or whatever, and all of a sudden this Lamborghini pulls in and it's the guys from Epic, and we're like, geez guys, come on, you're going for a burrito, why are you driving the Lamborghini? That's just rubbing our noses in it. So I mean, you do run into folks occasionally, like at lunch and stuff like that. But there are also, I mean, it's a really great community because pretty much everybody knows. I won't say no, everybody knows everybody. Everybody knows each other's company at least. Mm-hmm. So whenever you have like IGDA functions and stuff like that, it's pretty close knit, and it's a really nice environment. I mean, the closest thing I think I've seen to it is really Austin, just because we have so many companies in such a small area. I mean, we're not as big as Austin, obviously, in terms of game design, but we're up there, and I'd say the top 5 regions in the nation for game design.
Yeah. Okay. So now the fun part for me is I've been wanting to ask you this. You mentioned Firefly is your source of NPC dialogue, but where do all your other ideas come from? What books and movies and shows and settings and games and all? What got you into sci-fi and fantasy in the beginning?
Oh, geez, that's really tough. In the beginning, I would say Star Wars and Doctor Who. So I grew up watching Doctor Who like every Saturday night on Georgia Public Television and stuff like that, and so watched a lot of that, watched a lot of Star Wars, and watched a lot of cartoons. Actually, we were geeking out a little while ago because the trailer for a Star Blazers live-action movie just came online, and we were like, "Oh my God, that's awesome!" And then Colin, our producer, looks over and says, "What are you guys looking at?" And we're like, "No, you're too young. You don't know what this is." So yeah, it was really like Star Wars, Doctor Who, a lot of cartoon stuff like Star Blazers and Star Trek to some extent. I didn't get into really to Star Trek till later, but yeah, it's hard for a kid to really get Star Trek's just more cerebral, I guess. So, but yeah, I mean, as I got older, I started playing. Actually, the first role-playing game I ever really played correctly was Star Frontiers by TSR. It came out in like '85 or '86, and
a little bit before my time, Lee. Sorry.
It was like their first. No, I guess it wasn't their first sci-fi game. It was one of the early sci-fi games. We played a bunch of that and kind of went from there. I mean, from that point, it was pretty much all sci-fi stuff all the time, plus G.I. Joe. So
okay, here's a good question: Transformers or GoBots?
Transformers.
Oh, come on, challenge of the GoBots. No.
You had Scooter in GoBots. Scooter was a horrible character.
Okay. You talked about kind of your early days. What are you reading and watching these days?
Currently, actually, I'm being a huge geek right now. I'm currently not reading any book. Okay, I'm not reading like novels. I'm reading Eclipse Phase, Warhammer Fantasy Role-Playing Game 3rd Edition, the comic book series Sleeper by Ed Brubaker, which is fantastic. And I picked up a whole bunch of used comics at the store the other day. That some of the Spider-Man Brand New Day, which I refused to pay full price for, just because. Yeah, that's a whole rant. Yeah, these days I read a lot of comic books, a lot of games that I'm interested in their game design or their background. I need to get in. I've been meaning to read more and getting more into novels and stuff like that, but I just haven't had time recently. Actually, I have been reading until over the past year. I have read a hell of a lot of Terry Pratchett, just because I didn't find out how wonderful Terry Pratchett was until like 2 years ago. So I've just been devouring everything I can find by him.
Cool. What's coming up that you're looking forward to?
Oh, that's tough. That's really tough. I'm not really sure.
Besides the live action.
Live action Star Blazers. Well, there's always The Hobbit, and because that looks like it's going. Actually, I saw the casting list, and they're actually going to have Radagast the Brown in The Hobbit. So I'm like, really?
Well, he'll be on the extended edition, maybe.
Yeah. So yeah, it was, we were actually just talking about movies earlier. I was trying to think of movies I'm really looking forward to, and I'm actually having trouble thinking of stuff. Because there's a bunch of like tabletop games I want to get, but there's not necessarily any that aren't out yet that I'm really looking forward to.
Book of Eli coming out, kind of.
That's true. I do want to
Fallen Earth tie-in-ish.
Actually, I do want to see Book of Eli just because it looks like our game. I mean, it's a post-apocalyptic world in the desert, and people wear rags. I mean, dude, it looks like our game. Actually, I want to see Daybreakers. That's the other one I'm really looking forward to because I've seen some really good reviews on that. And it just looks really cool. And Iron Man 2. Because huge Iron Man comic books fan, so really want to see that. Can't really think of that many comics that I'm really looking forward to, or other novels. Actually, in games, I'm looking forward to Star Trek Online, just because hate to plug my competitors, I guess, but we have some guys who are in the beta, and it looks like just an awesome game. So I guess that's about it. Yeah, for some reason I've always got this list of I want to see this movie and this movie and this movie, but something about coming off the holidays, I'm just not all I don't have my list anymore. I guess I saw most of it.
Well, that's a good feeling to have too.
That's true.
I'll recharge with new ideas to bring to Fallen Earth. So.
Yeah, that's very true.
Cool. Well, Lee, thanks very much. It's been great to see you again. It's been a couple of years, and hopefully I can catch up sooner than that next time.
Oh, awesome. Sounds good. Thank you for coming by.
Thanks, Lee. So, let's see. So, thanks again to Lee Hammock, lead game designer for Fallen Earth. To learn more about Fallen Earth, visit the official website at fallenearth.com. And I hope you enjoyed this podcast. I'm Sam Montgomery-Blinn, and this is Bull Spec.